What makes for good leadership in today's world? Good corporate leadership, to be specific, or what should be the makings of good corporate leadership? That's the question that a book is trying to answer. It's called Winning Markets with Heart Leadership. And the man who's written it is with us, Managing Director of Livpure, Rakesh Kaul. Rakesh, thank you so much for taking time out to be with us. I'm going to begin by asking you, your book talks about building a culture of meaningful respect. I mean, we are here in the days of wondering, what are managers doing, asking their employees to work anything from 70-hour works to 90-hour work weeks. Lots of debate surrounding work-life balance. But more importantly, all of that goes back to the culture or the work culture within an organization, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we keep on hearing about this work-life balance, but nobody's really, actually cracked the code so far. We have so many numerous interpretations of how work-life balance should be adhered to. But more on that later on, because I don't want to comment about that. I want to talk about how, bringing authenticity in your leadership style, how being amenable and how being empathetic towards, even in these cutthroat scenario, can actually build a great leadership style. Because in India, if you know, or majorly across the world, your leadership is all about charisma, your strategies, your flamboyance, how you have won the markets, your strategies, and so on and so forth. But I felt through this book that leadership is not about yourself. Leadership is about how do you empower others, how do you bring empathy in your style. One of the crux of the problem which I found was, particularly in a country like India, where you can't remove the emotional connect even from the business connect. We take our work back to home and we take our home to work. So we are really intertwined. To that extent, I felt, heart leadership basically can answer those questions as such. And hence, I wrote this book about heart leadership.
Okay, can you also talk to us about, it's an interesting title that you have for the book. You yourself are somebody who has nearly 3 decades of, leadership experience in your career. Winning markets with heart leadership?
Great, yeah. So I'll tell you a little bit of a context. So I actually started out in 2017 and I was very, very keen to help the budding youngsters and leaders with a self-help book. It was all about it, how do you build yourself in the first half of your career and the second half of your career. And when COVID happened, I had almost written one half of that book and I actually trashed it because COVID actually transformed everything as such. When we had to take hard decisions, but I had to balance those hard decisions. How do you communicate those decisions, yet take those hard decisions? So it really transformed my thought process as such, that how do you actually believe that you can win, but with still heart leadership? In the Indian context, losing is a very bad word. Vulnerability is a very bad word. And that's where I've thought building vulnerability, building empathy are one of the key ingredients of building heart leadership. Heart leadership is not about losing, it's about winning, but with heart, with empathy, with the right kind of building trust and authenticity in your leadership is all about heart leadership.
And, this book you're saying is like a handbook for, managers aspiring to be in the C-suite eventually. But it's also something that's like a reminder of how organizations and people in organizations need to be managed, because there's lots of fears. One, employment itself seems to be difficult. And on top of that, when the kind of demands that are coming up on employment, on employees, all of that will be solved if the leadership is done with heart and soul.
Yeah, of course. I mean, leadership is all about, we talk about leadership being about followership, but leadership is not about yourself only. It's also about, how do you, when you're in the trenches with your team, how they work along with you and get themselves empowered. It's also about when you're not around them and they're still inspired to do the best for the organization. And the cleanest test, what I would say, of leadership, heart leadership, is when you're permanently moved out of that company and those leaders still are doing their best. So I think it's something which is long lasting, which is much more percolating down rather than, being a command and control. Correct. It's all about trust and inspire. That's what heart leadership brings onto the table.
Okay. You've gone into detail about this term, which is fascinating, called heart leadership in this book. But I would want to take your take on the conversation surrounding work-life balance that we began this conversation by. So much of debate around it, and all of them are asking, our managers and all these founders and all these guys from the C-suite, are they in a different planet when it comes to their expectations of what the average employee needs to bring?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I find it weird at times, when we talk about these 90 hours or 80 hours work at, and staring at your wife kind of a quotations actually. So that's pretty, hilarious at times. But, I've not really touched the topic of, how many number of hours you actually need to work. But, heart leadership is also about what happens at your home.
Yeah.
So, you being empathetic towards that as well. It's not, it's not about the 9 hours, what the
it's not about the hours.
It's not about the hours. It's about the time spent with that. How are you empowering that person, and how that person is actually endearing himself, and he's not actually getting penalized for mistakes.
Right.
One of the greatest proponents of heart leadership is vulnerability. It's a very bad word in India, vulnerability. You're vulnerable.
Yeah.
So a leader can't be vulnerable. He's supposed to be strong. He's supposed to be standing tall, galvanizing his forces. But I'm telling the leader's biggest asset is vulnerability, because that builds authenticity in the leader. That's what endears his employees and his team to him. So I think, it's crux. So 90 hours, 60 hours, 50 hours, it's a material discussion to me at least.
Okay, material discussion. Also it sort of helps us understand the kind of work culture that exists in Livpure. Talk to us about Livpure per se. It's doing something very different. I mean, so many watching this broadcast will have Livpure water purifiers in their homes, but you're going one step beyond that. You're not just about, you did get some fresh funding as well last year. You're going to innovate on new products. Tell us about that. And also about the fact that your big gambit is the water as a service model, in which you have ambitious plans of getting 10 lakh subscribers in the next 3 years. Talk to us.
Yeah, so I think I'll go a little bit back again, in terms of, water is a massive problem in India. The entire country is infiltrated with various kinds of levels of water, high TDS, high hardness of the water. You have lead poisoning, arsenic, metal across India in various places. So the quality of the water changes from country, state to state. Also at the same time, what we found way back in 2021 was that, the penetration of water purifiers, despite being such an important need for all households, is at a measly 6%. So which means only 6% of the Indian households had access to clean drinking water through an electrical water purifier. And hence what we found out was, there were several challenges. At the same time, what we've also found was there was a huge jar water market. There are more than millions of brands. As we talk about, more than 500 brands selling, bottled water. You don't really know where it's come from, what kind of minerals are there, what's the source as such.
Leave alone possible plastic contamination in your water.
Absolutely. So that's one part which is getting addressed nowadays to some extent. So we found that, and then we also found that there was a huge problem also when you owned a water purifier. The acquisition cost of a water purifier, for example, was 15,000. For example, every year you have to spend around 40% in maintaining that water purifier through an annual maintenance contract. So, the idea of convenience, the idea of experience, which is also emanated in my book, Heart Leadership, is that how to bring convenience and experience and love to our consumers. And that's where we launched this, revolutionary concept called water as a service, where we said to the consumers, look, you install an electrical water purifier, you don't have to pay us a dime. You just choose your plan based on the consumption of water. Whether you're a family of 1, 4, 6, you can choose your plan, unlimited plan, 250 liters, 500 liters, and pay as you go. And we gave them a subscription plan also in terms of 3, 6, and 12 months, which they could choose from. So absolutely no need to worry, no annual maintenance contract. You don't have to pay for any consumables at the end of the year. Even if your water is bad, these are all IoT based, water purifiers. So at any point of the time, any filter goes bad or is about to go bad, we receive a click on our servers, and there's an outbound call to the customer telling him that, look, this filter is going bad, can I come? So it's all pre-appointed. There's no, in terms of convenience, perfect. Unlike a water jar, where you have to almost get him into your apartment 3 to 4 times a month, and then getting those jars tilted and stuff like that, privacy issues and stuff like that. But in our case, it's an absolute brilliant that we're giving water as a service, and this is really caught on with across more than 26 cities now in India.
More than 26 cities where water as a service, which means that it's basically subscribers.
Yes.
You have subscribers who pay you a certain sum of money on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis and get pure drinking water for it. They don't need to own the water purifier.
Absolutely.
Now, interestingly, but while you keep doing that, you're also constantly innovating and bringing out newer and newer water purifiers for the Indian market. Talk to us about what is the latest.
Yeah, so I'll go a little bit about this idea of ownership. As we are addressing concerns, and as we are seeing the millennials and the Gen Zs particularly, the idea of ownership has taken a back seat.
Okay.
Their idea of ownership is taken by an idea of experience. So if you see 85% of our consumers today are between the age of 25 and 35. So that's a very, very upwardly mobile consumers who are not really hell-bent on owning a thing, but are hell-bent on getting a great experience out of the product. So water as a service gave that experience to this set of product. And may I tell you now, our cohort is 50% of our cohort is family cohort as well. So, having a so-called rental water purifier or rental machine at your home is no longer a taboo. Indian consumers are looking at experience, not only at ownership. And that's where we are. Yes, of course, innovation has been the fundamental rock behind our thought process of expanding water purifiers across the country. So this year, we actually revolutionized the water purifier further one step ahead. So as I told you, the biggest challenge of the water purifier is that you need to service it every year. And the competition guys are there at the knocking at your door and say, oh, your water purifier has gone bad, you need to pay this much amount of money. So we revolutionized it by launching India's first what you call the embedded water service, which means we give you a product, which in this case was an Allura Premia, the name of the model, and we give a 30 months embedded service free in the product itself.
Wow.
So for the next 30 months, the consumer does not have to do any annual maintenance contract, does not have to pay for any consumables, none for spares, none for visits, and hence it has become, we have become almost a leader in this market, garnering almost 70 to 75% share of the market. So I think that's one of the big innovations what we did recently. We also recently launched India's slimmest water purifiers. Water purifiers essentially being a part of the kitchen, and kitchen has become a very, I would say, a place of pride in the household. Earlier, you never used to take, people and folks and guests to your kitchen. Now, post-COVID, kitchen has become an instrument of, faith in terms of showing it across to the guests who are coming to your place. So I think to that extent, bringing in authentic, brilliant products which are launching a slimmest, reverse osmosis water purifier has been one another leap of faith for us. Bringing design, bringing aesthetics, and ease of usage to the consumer. That's been the cornerstone of our strategy for the last 2 years.
Okay, can you give us an idea of also what are you looking at when it comes to the future going forward in terms of what Livpure is looking to do?
So yes, we are trying to double down on our water as a service for sure, because we believe that is fundamentally building a great experience for the consumer. So how we have built the consumer, further extending that benefits to the consumer. One is of course extending beyond these 26 cities and going to 50 cities in the next three odd years. Second is we have built up being a very strong manufacturing-led company in water purifiers, where we have state-of-the-art water purifier plant in Gurgaon. We also do is different kinds of water purifier installation. So we have a hot and ambient also. People who love to have a coffee in their morning. So we can do the under the sink also in houses where there are modular kitchens as well. So we have hot and ambient. Then we are also launching an alkaline based water purifier as well. So we are not only addressing the water as a service purely from a subscription service, we are actually going up the value chain and offering consumer the various products, whether it's on the feature benefit association or is the type of the product where it can be installed. So I think this is one of the things which we are doing at the same time. We are also getting into a greater degree of engagement with our consumers in terms of, because this is a real-time feedback. You have the app, you can actually give a feedback. It's a real time and the experience has to come in real time. And above all, let me tell you, the biggest challenge in this business, which also turns out to be our biggest advantage, is service. It's a very, very intensive service-led category where, if the water goes off even for a minute, and there's hue and cry because you have to go to fetch water from outside. Yeah. So the service has to be at its intense level. So I can assure you, and I can tell your viewers that we've been doubling down our efforts. We have more than 2,500 engineers across the India, covering around 16,000 pin codes, both for water as a product and water as a service. And we continue to build this service infrastructure for the experience of our consumers.
Okay, one last thought before we let you go. Your book, Winning Markets with Heart and Leadership. Tell us, in terms of who should be out there picking up this book?
This book, the beauty of this book is this is not only for a particular section of, it doesn't target a particular section, I would say. So it's good for the seasoned executives, people who are already at leadership positions, and it's a great book even for people who are just starting out. Because if they read it, I believe that they can build the tenets of heart leadership early on in their careers. They will find it much more become much more meaningful and easier to become great leaders in their later part of the career. I sincerely hope so. It has inspired me as I have written the book myself, and I hope it inspires the cross section of the people who will go through it.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Rakesh Kaul, thank you so much for taking time out to be with us here on News 9.